96.7 KCAL rocks. Here we are on a soggy Thursday to talk some sports with our guy, Bep. Bep, what's going on?
Just trying to stay dry out there, Patrick, like everybody else, man. It's going to be a wet week, maybe 2 weeks here in the IE. I haven't not looked at the forecast going long-term, what the Super Bowl is going to look like. But they're in Las Vegas. Remember, the Death Star, as they like to call it. So it'll be all good. It'll be probably 72 degrees covered. It'll be a perfect Super Bowl for the 49ers and the Chiefs. So remember, not this weekend. We got the Pro Bowl games. It's next weekend, February 11th. And we found out today, if it matters, if you're a little superstitious, that the 49ers will have the road white uniforms, white tops at least, and the Kansas City Chiefs will have the home red uniform. So I know there's some superstition about, the white team, usually doesn't, the road jerseys don't do as well in the Super Bowl. So if you're into that sort of thing, that's what's going down, at least uniform-wise.
From what I've heard is the white jerseys are like 16-3 in the last 20 Super Bowls or whatever. However, 4 years ago, the 49ers were wearing the white jerseys. They are one of those 3 losses. Nevertheless, it is looking good for Frisco, I think. We're headed up for a great game, I feel.
Yeah, we've got 2 weeks to kind of size this up, and I've heard about every argument for San Francisco, for Kansas City, against the 49ers. So I think as we get closer to the game, we're going to hear a lot of different takes on who's the favorite, right? Kansas City has the track record of recent, but, the 49ers, they have 5 Super Bowls in their franchise history. In fact, if they beat Kansas City, they're going to join 2 other teams for the most Super Bowls in NFL history. We got New England with 6 and Pittsburgh was 6. So for San Francisco, they're trying to make history. And for Kansas City, I guess the storyline for them is trying to establish themselves as the newest dynasty. It was New England for so long, since the early 2000s. But if Kansas City gets the job done, you got to say they are the new dynasty.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he's 28 years old, and he's already in Super Bowl number 4. So, he's doing pretty well. We have to admit it.
Yeah, 2 Super Bowls already, right? So, if they win this time, it's time to start talking about Kansas City as the dynasty. They've had a good run. Like the last 5 years, they've had a good run, and there's no doubt about that. But, dude, New England did it for 20 plus years. Like it was off the hook. It was unbelievable. I don't remember the Steelers of the 70s. I remember the 49ers a little bit, from the 80s into the 90s. But 20 plus years, like that's ridiculous for New England to be so good for so long. And obviously Tom Brady was a huge reason why.
It is wild, man. 10 Super Bowl appearances for him. It's crazy.
Yeah, another storyline that's getting legs, and I didn't, put 2 and 2 together until I read this, but, Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Shanahan, their fathers were part of Super Bowl teams. Ed McCaffrey, the great receiver, and, of course, the legendary Mike Shanahan. So Mike Shanahan won 3 Super Bowls, Denver, and I think he was also an offensive coordinator with San Francisco when they won 1.
Correct.
And then Ed McCaffrey, too, Denver, and he played for the 49ers a little bit, although I remember him as a Bronco. So there's that, too, like, the father and the sons trying to duplicate what the dads did.
There is the family connection. It's wild when they go back in the videos and you can see a young Kyle Shanahan next to his dad with the 49ers and the Broncos. It is wild to see him as just a kid, man.
I know, you know what I mean? Like a sponge, he had to soak something up being around football and, some great NFL teams, Denver and San Francisco. Like it's not by accident Kyle Shanahan's like this, football guru, and he loves offense and scoring points. Like it's not by accident this all happened.
No, LaFleur and all the other coaches, They were all there. Look at the tree. Nobody talks about the tree of Shanahan.
Yeah.
Look at the tree of Shanahan. We got it right here in the LA with the Rams, man. Sean McVay.
Yeah, you know what? It might be better than the Bill Belichick tree. I feel like Bill Belichick's disciples go places, don't really pan out.
No, they don't do well.
No. All right, well, that's a perfect segue. As we talk NFL coaches, we'll talk more about the Super Bowl next week, but NFL head coaching. So it's kind of like a domino effect here, Patrick. So let me start with this. Chargers fired head coach Brandon Staley, right? So he's out. Jim Harbaugh's in. But now the Rams are looking at Staley to be the defensive coordinator. And the Rams need a defensive coordinator because Raheem Morris, their defensive coordinator, is now the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. And they picked Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. So we're coming full circle here. So what's going on with Bill Belichick?
Yeah, I mean, he looks like his stock is low right now. A lot of people think he's waiting for Sirianni to fail in Philadelphia so he can just take a year off and then go for that so then he can beat Don Shula in the records. However, for the Rams, I see this Staley thing working. Yes, he didn't do well as a head coach, but I feel like he's a great coordinator. And then working with McVay, I think it's going to work out really well. Trust me, that's the last thing I want to say being a Seahawk fan, but I bet you it works out.
I think you're right. And there's no shame in a head coach saying, you know what? Maybe this is not for me. Maybe I should go be a coordinator, because there's a lot of great coordinators and they get paid really well too. So there's no shame in that. And I think he's a good defensive guy. So if he does end up being the Rams defensive coordinator, I think that would be a great gig. And with Bill Belichick, yeah, I mean, yeah. Is he waiting for the Eagles? And correct me if I'm wrong, I think Washington's the only team right now that doesn't have a head coach. We'll talk about Seattle in a second. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird that Bill Belichick is just still kind of out there. Did he miss his window? Is he still waiting for the right opportunity? Nobody really knows.
No, is he too old? And then quickly, just speaking of coordinators, I've just heard some rumors with the Raiders that they're looking for an OC. And I've heard of Cliff Kingsbury and even Mr. Chip Kelly as the OC. That would be wild if that works out. Again, I feel like they would be great coordinators.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury, former Arizona coach, right? You know, maybe going back to the NFL to run an offense. And Chip Kelly, I'll say this, he did have some success in the NFL. It wasn't like he was a failure in the NFL, because he wasn't. But from what I've been told, UCLA had their worst recruiting class ever, and they're going to the Big Ten, so their schedule is just going to get tougher. If there was a time for him to probably go make as much money or more as a coordinator in the NFL, this might be the time.
Yeah, man. We'll have to see. It's kind of fun to see, like you said, the dominoes fall into place.
Yes. And speaking of dominoes, the Seahawks, I don't know if this was a curveball, but I don't really see this guy's name on a lot of radars out there for NFL head coaching vacancies. But Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald is the new head coach in Seattle. And Patrick, I know you know this, but I was kind of surprised. But I mean, I guess if you dig deep, like the Ravens had a great defense. So if they're trying to find a defensive-minded guy up in Seattle, maybe they're going to change their identity a little bit to be more, defensive minded instead of trying to load up on offense, even though they got some great young offensive guys. Then maybe he's the right choice, Mike Macdonald.
Yeah, a lot of complaints from my friends because Pete, of course, was a defensive guy. So he figured that maybe we should have just kept Pete. And then we're going from the oldest coach in the league to now the youngest coach in the league. And I'm just hoping that they just didn't hire him because he's young. And now we have to see, speaking of coordinators, we weren't worried about the defense, although it underperformed. Don't get me wrong. Yes, we have weapons over there. We really have weapons on both sides. Yeah. But now, who's going to run the offense? That's kind of the concern of the Seattle fan right now. That's why I'm thinking, my God, get Chip Kelly, get Cliff Kingsbury. We need somebody to run that offense. But of course, the problem that comes up with why people are staying away possibly from the Seattle job is Geno Smith. I think people may not want to be tied to Geno Smith, and whether we want to, admit it or not, Geno may have cost Pete his job.
Yeah, Geno had a great season, but is he an elite quarterback? That's, I'll let them decide that. But yeah, going back to the coordinators, man, if they get Chip Kelly or Cliff Kingsbury to run the offense, that would be great. That'd be a great gig. And then, for Mike Macdonald, that's a great point, Patrick, that you bring up. Pete Carroll, oldest coach in the league, although he didn't act like it, but he was. Yeah. And then to go to the youngest, it's kind of like that Sean McVay effect. I think NFL teams are thinking, okay, maybe we could hit the jackpot. Maybe we'll strike gold with this great young up-and-coming coach. And maybe if it works out, he'll have a great 20-year run and bring us a couple Super Bowls and all this. So I think Sean McVay didn't ruin it for a lot of young coaches because they're getting their opportunities. But I think he put that expectation, that bar really, really high because he did so well so quickly with the Rams.
And gosh, it's so hard, man. I mean, it's kind of one of the reasons we're criticizing the Lions so much. Yeah. They may never even sniff it again. We know it. It's like going all the way back to Dan Marino. I'm going to come here every year.
Yeah.
Never again.
Nope. It's hard, man. Football is hard. And finally, this weekend, it's going to be interesting with all the rain coming to Southern California, but we at the Coliseum, not USC football, but NASCAR, the Clash at the Coliseum, a big exhibition event to kind of get the juices flowing for the Daytona 500 in a couple Sundays on February 18th. So if you're a NASCAR fan, it's here, but we just need the rain to stay away.
Here comes the NASCAR. I was telling Pep off air, I passed Paul Menard's NASCAR rig this morning. His hauler was going down the freeway. I thought, where are they coming from? Geez, probably North Carolina because it's the very beginning of the season. But just like you said, we're going to have some KCAL rockers out there at NASCAR's The Clash. Very kind of cool and iconic looking to see them in the infamous Coliseum.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. A place that's had the Olympics and obviously big USC football games, having NASCAR inside there for a big exhibition event. Yeah, and if you're rolling deep on the 10 freeway, keep your eyes open, man. You might see more haulers like Patrick did.
Yeah, man. Give him the honk sign.
Yeah.
Make him honk that big holler, man. We will talk more sports with our guy, Pep. We'll know a little bit more about Super Bowl as we get closer and closer and closer to it. Maybe go over a couple of prop bets, and Pep can give us his prediction on what's going to go down on the game. Pep, tell him how to get your stuff.
As long as it favors the 49ers, man, I'm all in. You can get my stuff on Inland Sports, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. What am I missing? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and YouTube. All that stuff. And anytime at Inland Sports. If you're down with the IE, you can find us.
Thanks, Pep.